There you go. We'll start again. Welcome, everyone. We have joining us today Tammy Pegner. She's the founder and head life coach of Vision Scope Coaching. And Tammy comes with an ex-corporate warrior background where she has coached executive people. She's also done people management and in human resources. She's also worked internationally as a clinician with adults and children with learning difficulties. And she brings with her as well a basis in energetic healing, business and psychology. And she also, in the south of India, learned how to be a trained yoga teacher under the tutelage of monks. And just recently, she's returned from India, where she spent time in an ashram, learning the art of surrendering and increasing self-love. And today, she's going to take us through self-worth, authenticity, and business ownership. And just before I hand it over to Tammy, if you have any questions while you're working through this, please feel free to put them in the chat section. We'll select a few of them at the end of the session, and we'll answer them then. So I'm now going to hand it over to Tammy. Welcome, Tammy.
Ah, thank you. Goodness gracious, it sounds so fabulous when somebody else says all those things. Thank you very much for your introduction. It's been a pleasure working so far with Katrina. So I'm really thrilled for this evening. And as Katrina mentioned, we're going to be chatting about the concepts of self-worth, authenticity, and business ownership. All things that I certainly personally have been managing myself and work with a huge plethora of clients to help with them as well. So these three webinars are going to be in a coaching format. So some of you may have done coaching before and some may not. For those that haven't, coaching is all about learning about what's going on at the moment, but taking some solid action on what is actually next. So as we go through, there's going to be a couple of activities for each of you to do. So hopefully you've got your pen and paper ready to go. And if there's any questions that pop up, make sure you pop them in the chat box. And Katrina, like she mentioned, is going to collate those to ask me at the end, which should be a lot of fun as well. So we're going to kick off straight into it. I'm going to stop my video so you can have a look and concentrate on the slides that are going to be coming up. And firstly, I didn't realize initially that I was going to have my video on. So I popped some pictures of myself here so you knew who the person was speaking, but they're not quite as relevant now. So I'll show you them very quickly, and then we're going to whip on over into starting with self-worth. So there's 4 pictures of me, some flattering and some not. The ones on the left are when I have most recently been in India, as Katrina mentioned as well. So while I was actually in India, I was feeling a little bit travel sick, and then out of nowhere, what appeared to be almost an angel popped in front of me and said, "Here, just pop these essential oils on your belly button, behind your neck, and then waft in the aroma." And I did that, and for one of the first times in my life, I wasn't travel sick on a really very, very long and bumpy road in India. So Young Living has impressed me no end, that's for sure. So when we're getting into self-worth, this is something that some of you may have come across before. Essentially, it is the opinion that we have about ourselves and the value that we're placing on it. So self-worth is one of those things that's really important because it recognizes that we're valuable because we're us, because we're unique, and because there's nobody in the world like us. If we have a bit of a flailing self-worth, we tend to shy away from trying new things, meeting new people, and actually enjoying the day-to-day life that we've got in front of us as well. Self-worth as well, it really helps us with our mental toughness and our resilience. And if we don't have that, it's incredibly difficult to be able to pick ourselves up and try again if things don't really work out. So one of the reasons that we're chatting about self-worth this evening is if it's feeling a little fledgling and it's flailing a little bit, it really makes an impact on every other area of our life. In particular, if we are working or are business owners. And delightfully, everybody on the line this evening is a business owner. So let's have a look at some of the barriers to self-worth. The first one, some of you may have heard of, and it is something called imposter syndrome. So this has been gaining in popularity, this concept, recently, but it's been around for a really, really long time. It was first discovered in 1978. And essentially, it's a concept that describes when high achieving individuals in particular are marked by an inability to internalize their accomplishments and have this really ongoing, persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. I work a lot with high achieving women in particular, and I can't tell you how frequently I come across imposter syndrome on a daily basis. It's that really persistent feeling of being a phony. So if you've ever walked into a community meeting or into a boardroom or into any kind of room and felt like someone's going to find you out because you're in that room, that's kind of what imposter syndrome is. It's that feeling like we're being a bit of a fake and that someone's going to find us out. Now, this is something really important to be aware of, because if we don't address imposter syndrome, we can develop anxiety, increased stress levels, lower self-confidence, those irky, icky, yucky feelings of shame and self-doubt, and move us even closer towards depression. So it's a sticky area, I must say, but once we've actually got awareness of it, for many of us, if we are dealing with imposter syndrome, the awareness in the first place is one of the things that move us through that as well. If you've got any questions about imposter syndrome, again, pop them in the chat box and I can cover those off as we progress towards the end as well. The second barrier to self-worth is your environment. So this is your friends, your family. If you have a job in addition to being a Young Living member, it would be your workplace, and certainly the town or the city that you're living in as well. What we hear surrounding us shapes what we think about ourselves, you know, how other people are dressing compared to how we're dressing, how their accents are compared to ours. So that can definitely be a barrier to self-worth. And we're going to come back to that one in a moment as well, to deep dive into that one a little bit more too. The environment additionally brings up that pesky thing of comparison. And there's a fabulous quote that you may have seen that says, "Comparison is a thief of joy." And it really couldn't be more accurate. It absolutely is. So we're going to move on to the barrier of what other people say to you. Now, this is an interesting one, because for some people it rolls off their back, and for other people it really feels like rubbing salt into the wound. So the barrier here is actually about how we discern the information of what other people are saying to us. So discernment can be one of our greatest strengths in self-worth, and can also be one of the greatest weaknesses as well. So it's something to keep an eye on when we're looking at our self-worth. Our next one you may be familiar with, which is this continuous, very pervasive justification. So I see it all the time, particularly with my clients who have businesses, that when they're tapping away and writing an email, they'll start it off with, "Hi, Sally, I'm just writing to tell you da 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 da," or "I'm just calling to give you the heads up." And when we say just in these circumstances, it's literally a justification, and we want to start to get out of that habit if that's something that you're noticing day to day. And lastly, and possibly the biggest barrier to self-worth, is our internal dialogue. So this is that internal mean girl or mean boy that chatters away and consistently compares us to other people. It puts down what we're talking about, what we're wearing, how we started off a selling conversation, if we did or didn't close a deal, all of these kinds of things. And it's an unfriendly voice most of the time. So I'm going to show the next slide for you in a moment. And when it pops up, I want you to read it out loud. So I mean, literally out loud. If you've got kids running around, say it anyway. And just give it a go. So here's the next slide, and I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to read it out loud. So I want you to think about how that actually felt when you read that out aloud. For some, and actually for many, it can be an incredibly confronting thing to say. Often, for most of us, people will read that and go, oh, and feel, in some cases, a little irked by what they're reading. Some will struggle to be able to say the words out loud. But here's the thing, if we accept ourselves exactly as we are, it's a nicer place to be, and we can also be a lot more authentic with ourselves as well. So some of you may be familiar with affirmations. I'm a jolly big fan of them, and that's exactly what's on the screen at the moment. So this is an affirmation. Louise Hay is very big on affirmation. She's the guru as far as self-talk goes and how to look after yourself. So the way that I look at affirmations is, if you think about your brain like it's the best car parking space in town and there's only one of them, every single car that comes even close to that parking space wants it. They're all trying to jam to be in there. And they're often the negative thoughts. So those negative thoughts are all trying to get into that parking space and into our brain and scream really loudly. So if we've already got something parked in there, like a car, the others can't get in. So if we're saying a positive affirmation like the one on the screen consistently, that's where none of the other awful thoughts can get in. So as far as homework goes, one of the first things I'm going to get you to do over the course of the next week is to say this exact statement: I love and accept myself exactly as I am, in front of the mirror 10 times a day, and in addition to that 20 times a day. So give that a go. If you need any reminders around, stick some stickers up, write it out, pop it on a post-it. I know some of you have done vision boards, so you might want to pop it on there, and make sure you're saying it an absolute minimum of 30 times a day. So give it a go. As I mentioned, the more that we accept ourselves exactly as we are, the higher our authenticity is. So to move on to authenticity is important, because the more authentic we are, the better that people connect with us. And if we're not connecting with others, how on earth are we going to build our tribe, create our community, to be able to spread the joy that we get from young living, certainly in my case, as I mentioned before. So when we look at authenticity, all of us have had a moment of inauthenticity. I find it can be quite difficult to maintain being authentic in an uncomfortable or, in particular, an unfamiliar situation. For lots of us, the reason that this is because we're worrying that our real self is not good enough or appropriate for the situation that we find ourselves in. And it's that massive fear of rejection that prevents us from being authentic. So instead of showing up as ourselves, sometimes we show up as the person that we think the people around us will like, which the funny thing is people can see straight through it. So we actually don't want to do that. I find that I personally am attracted to people who are authentic, and I'm sure a lot of the rest of you are as well. When people are authentic, it makes us feel comfortable and safe, and we feel respected because they're showing up as themselves. So let's have a look at some of the ways that we can cultivate authenticity. And the first is avoiding perfectionism. So what's wrong with being perfect? Some of you might ask. It's actually impossible. If you ask the previous me, so certainly the Tammy who was at high school, I used to pride myself on having everything just so and having everything perfect. But the thing with that is it doesn't allow us to be authentic. So I consider myself a perfectionist in recovery. It's always something that I am working on, and it is something that we need to manage. One of the things with perfectionism is it's also highly correlated with non-clinical anxiety as well. So the more that we can do things to the best of our ability without having to put the perfectionistic logo on it, the better. Now, the next way that I would recommend cultivating authenticity is by practicing vulnerability. And this is somewhat of a hot topic at the moment because it's through becoming vulnerable that we can connect most deeply with those around us. And if we're not connecting with those around us, why would they want to listen to what we have to say or hear how we're doing or hear the message that we're looking to get across? So it's really important to be okay with being vulnerable, because we trust people who don't need to prove their superiority. They don't need to prove that they're successful or prove that they're significant. And we really want to connect from a place of being human, which is the best bit of all of us. So there is a fabulous TED Talk some of you may have seen by an amazing lady called Brené Brown. If you haven't already watched it, I would recommend that you watch it. It's called The Power of Vulnerability, and by an amazing lady called Brené Brown. So I can send the link to that through after the webinar as well. It goes for about 20 minutes, and she really shines an amazing light on the importance of showing the true selves of us. The next way that I would have a look at cultivating authenticity to be able to be a better version of ourselves and to build our businesses is to listen authentically. It's so funny. I don't know about you, but have you ever been in one of those conversations and you've caught yourself actually not really hearing the detail, but waiting for a break in conversation because you've got your 2 cents to pop in? It's so funny how many of us can identify with that. And we actually want to do the reverse of that. We want to listen with intention to be able to see the world and the situation through that other person's eyes. So not necessarily to purely see it through our own. When we listen authentically, we can hear the pauses in between the sentences. We can hear the happiness or the sorrow, and that can actually help us have more informed, fabulous, deep and meaningful conversations, and help us grow our businesses as well. So the last way is by increasing self-awareness. So the more that we know about ourselves, the easier it is to be ourselves. You know, it's literally as simple as that. So we want to get to know ourselves in a really thorough way. I know a bunch of you on here have done a lot of personal development and self-development before, which is brilliant. So we want to keep that going. And so I want you to grab out your pen and paper, and I want you to list the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So it might be your mum, your partner if you've got one. If you watch a certain TV show consistently and constantly, so a bit of a wild example, you might watch the Kardashians on repeat. If that's the case, literally one of those characters is one of the people you spend the most time with. So listing them down 1 to 5, and I'll give you a moment to finish that off. Beautiful. So next to your 5 people, it might be mum, partner, best friend. If you've got a beautiful little child, you might have one of your kids there. And then maybe another friend, or if you have another job as well, a colleague of yours. So now that you've listed those 5 people down, I want you to pop 2 columns next to their names. And in those columns, I want you to write the best quality of each of those people and the worst quality of each of those people. So next to mum, you might have the best quality is that she's caring, and the worst quality might be that she's a bit picky. Next to your best friend, the best quality might be funny, and the worst quality might be that they're a micromanager. So I'm going to give you some time to do that. So next to each of those names, you're going to have the best quality of each of them, 1 word, and the worst quality of each of them, 1 word. Beautiful. So when any of you have done that, just pop it in the chat box that you're done, and then we'll continue on. Beautiful. We've got a couple done.
You can also raise your hands. The hand thing by your panelist, your name.
Oh, terrific. Thanks, Katrina. Beautiful. Okay, fabulous. So I think the majority of people are done. So what I want you to do now is to cross out each of the names that you've written there. So cross them out all off your piece of paper. And then all of those descriptors. So you should have 10 descriptive words there. I want you to circle that. and right above it, this is me. So the people that we hang around, which is our environment, like I alluded to earlier, actually that's what we become. So we've got some examples on the chat. Some of the positive ones were generous, intelligent, generous again. And those are examples, if those are in your 10 words, of actually a descriptor of you. If some of the negative qualities were, a fixed mindset, they're too talkative or they're a bit picky, that's actually a descriptor of some of your weaknesses as well. So this I find a fabulous exercise to bring up actually what's going on for us. And when we have a look at this, we can only see those qualities in other people that we have ourselves as well. So one of the actions that I'd like you to complete over the next week is to have a look at this list now and choose either a strength or a weakness that was in those 10. And if it's a strength, say, well, how can I build on this strength? How can I make it even stronger in myself? So, for example, if one of yours was generous and that's the one that you're working on, how over the course of the next week can I increase my generosity and make it a really solid action that you can take? So, for example, mentioning to a friend who has kids that you can pick up their kids as well from school at the same time. Fabulous. It could be giving a call to all of the people that you know that work for Young Living or work for you, and just checking in with them and being generous with your time. Or if it was one of your qualities that was a negative one, so maybe having a bit of a fixed mindset might be the example that you're going with and wanting to work on over the course of the next week. It might be that you think about a topic that you're quite opinionated about or that you have some strong opinions on, and looking at the other viewpoint. So choose one of those top 10 and create a solid action as to what you're going to work on for the next week. It's funny, even though some of the things that come up for us don't initially look like they relate to our business world, they all do. One of the reasons that I became a coach is because I used to work in the corporate world, and we'd only work on people's careers. And if they were feeling, unhealthy or lacking in energy or having problems with their partners or their kids, how can they show up in their business life? So that's also one of the reasons that we're looking quite holistically at your life starting today in this webinar, is because if your self-worth is increased and you're feeling more like yourself and feeling more comfortable in your own skin, that increases our ability to be a fabulous business person. Cool. So pop in the chat box now if there's any particular questions surrounding that exercise, and I can cover those off now before we move on. Beautiful. So there don't seem to be any questions so far, so we'll kick on. But I find that activity is quite an interesting one. You might want to get some of your friends to do it, or some of the people that work for you to do it as well, and give them the surprise that all of those descriptors are actually describing them. I think it's always quite a fun activity to do. Beautiful. So we're going to press on and really start to entrench ourselves in this concept of business ownership. Because as I mentioned before, everybody who's on here is a business owner. In my experience with business owners, I find that there can be a degree of, for some, almost embarrassment that they own a business, and that can be one of the major blockages to them really flourishing with their own business. So I want to change the wording from business ownership to owning the fact that you have a business, because that is fantastic. So I'd love to share a story with you of somebody that I met while I was in India. She was sitting in the ashram and she was drinking from one of those mugs. Some of you probably have these that have the Young Living logo on there. And I went up to her and I said, "Oh my goodness, I've heard such amazing things about Young Living. Do you sell for them? What do you do? How are you involved?" And she was so passionate about the products, and I mentioned a couple of things that were going on for me, and she was so quick to give me all of this fabulous, valuable advice and say all of the things that could help me, some of the products that would really assist me in where I was at. She was so engaged, her eyes were bright, her eyes were sparkling, and I was so fascinated. She was a wealth of knowledge, essentially. And then when I said, "Great, well, I think I'd like some of that. Thank you. That sounds fantastic." She said, "Here's the thing. I've got a wholesale account and I can get you them for the cheaper price and you won't have to pay what everybody else pays." And I must say, my heart sunk on behalf of her, because the thing that she didn't seem to be grasping in that moment is that she was a business owner and she was representing a fabulous brand that she was proud of, that she knew made results, and then she undervalued it right at the last moment. There I was, completely willing to pay whatever it was for the solution of what I was talking to her about, and she pipped herself at the post. So I see this particular scenario all the time with different business owners, and I want to make sure that nobody listening today is falling into that trap. Owning the fact that you have a business is incredibly important because it's excellent. So many people want to be business owners and they don't necessarily have the courage to take the first step that all of you have made. Some of you are quite progressed in your Young Living business, which is fantastic. And we want to make sure that any of the blockages that are in between where you are now and where you could be are getting out of the way. So we really want to start being happy and proud of the fact that we own a business. It is incredible. You've put a lot of hard work in to get to where you're at, and there is no shame in attaching money to the wonderful value that you can bring to other people. Now, I'm going to use something that is maybe referred to for some as the S word. And that word is selling. When you own a business, I'm afraid the thing is you're in sales. Some of you are going to be really comfortable and cool with that, and some of you are going to find that quite an uncomfortable concept to be playing with. So I want to show you and share with you a really fabulous quote that deals with this. So it's by a guy called Simon Sinek, and he says, "The goal is not to sell to people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe." And I think this is such a profound concept, that we really want to surround ourselves with the people who care about what we care about, because they're our tribe. That's where we build our community and build on our community if we've already got one as well. So the way that I put it is a little less delightful than Simon Sinek's. I love this concept of finding people who are weird in the same way that I'm weird. I just love this concept. When I was in India in this ashram, I was surrounded by people who would rather spend their days chanting and sitting on the floor and, you know, having dirty feet and having fabulous real conversations that matter. They're my tribe. You know, yours may be different or yours may be the same, but it's really important to be able to find the people who are weird like you're weird, who find the people who believe what you believe, and that's actually your target market. So start becoming aware of what it is actually that you believe. You know, think now, what is it that I believe in? What is it that brought me to Young Living? You know, is it that you want to, and pop some examples in the chat box. I'd love to see them. What it is that you believe in, as profound as you like or not, either way is great. It might be that you believe in living in a chemically free home and bringing up kids in a clear, chemically free environment. It might be that you believe in reaching your full potential and being healthy and happy every single day as best as you can. It might be that you believe in empowering yourself and empowering other people to be the best that they can be. So finding what that nugget is so important, because if we don't have it, how on earth are we going to connect with these people? You know, we have a fabulous product here. How do we find the people that care about the same things that we do? So when you start to become crystal clear on what is it that helps you to wake up in the morning, it's so important. Ah, fabulous. I love this example from Sarah O'Reilly. She said that the thing that she believes in is being able to deserve that we have the best well-being possible in a holistic way. Oh, I love that. Meredith Olin says, I believe in valuing myself and my family so highly that optimal health and wellness is my #1 priority. Oh, how brilliant are they? So, you know, if I was Meredith, for example, I would actually type that out if she hasn't already, print it off and pop it on your vision board or pop it in front of your desk wherever you're working, pop it on the fridge as a reminder of why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah, thanks, Meredith. All living beings. Oh, thank you, Sarah O'Reilly. All living beings deserve to have the best well-being possible in a holistic way. How beautiful is this? So those ladies are going to be printing that off and popping that in a space that they see all the time. Oh, yes. Thank you, Katrina. Great demonstration of vulnerability. Sarah says she involves her animals as well, which is even better. So all living beings includes the animals too. So have a think about what is it that you actually believe, and utilize that to be able to boost your business in a way that helps you connect with all living beings. Thank you, Sarah, to be able to help them to achieve their dreams, their goals, and their beliefs as well. Really, really good. So we're going to, there we go. What do you believe? What a fabulous slide I put in there. So we're going to have a chat now about this concept of attracting business. Bear with me, I'm just going to take a sip of water. And I want to tell a fabulous story from an excellent marketer called Seth Godin. He says, picture yourself that you're sitting in a car and you've been driving for hours and hours. And on either sides of the road as you're driving, you see field after field after field, you know, no real change in the landscape. In each of these fields, you're seeing cows and fields as you continue to drive and drive and drive. And then all of a sudden, out of the corner of your eye, you look into one of those fields and you see a cow which is purple. And you go, oh my gosh. And you pull over, you stop the car, you take out your phone, you take a picture, and you think, oh my gosh, I've never seen a purple cow before. That's so uncanny. This is totally bananas. And then you get back in your car and you just can't stop thinking about that purple cow. And so you call somebody and you say, you'll never believe what I just saw. I saw a cow and it was purple. Have you seen one of those before? No, I haven't seen one of those before. And then you continue to tell this story about this thing that you saw, and therein lies the juice of what we want to be doing. The reason that we're telling the person that we saw a purple cow is because it's remarkable. We literally want to remark on the thing that we saw. So we want to bring in this concept of remarkability into what we're doing every day with our business. Oh, look, there's our purple cow. You'd tell people about that, wouldn't you? So how do we build in this concept of remarkability into each of your Young Living businesses? You know, how you act as a manager potentially to others, you know, how you cultivate others, empower others, how you spread the story of Young Living, and how this actually helps you. So one of the ways that we can be remarkable, to have a story that is remarkable, is to really look after ourselves. You know, we don't necessarily want to fall into that category of being the evangelistic salesperson, because not too many people really like that, to be honest. I know that's not really my flavor. So we look after ourselves first, and when, you know, ourselves and our families and our house and our well-being is screaming out that we're happy and we're fulfilled, that's the thing that people notice, and that's the thing that people remark on. So it's a fabulous place to start. It's one example of many. If you've got an example of what you're already doing to be remarkable and to help your Young Living story be remarkable, pop it in the chat box, or an idea that you might be starting this week as well. So this is one of the ways that we can attract business, which is to be remarkable, you know, have a story that is worth remarking on. And think of the purple cow. It's always something that sticks in my brain and makes me feel really fabulous about trying out something new, or taking a risk, or putting myself outside my comfort zone. There's a fabulous example from Kim Thompson. It says, I'm a hot oily mama and I attract other hot oily mamas. They're my tribe. Brilliant. Kim clearly has got the gist of this. You know, we've got to really own who we are, what we're about, what we believe in, and that's what attracts other people that are like-minded, or who want to take a leap and be similar to us as well, or be similar to what we're looking to build on for ourselves. So we're not finished products just yet, and we're all striving towards something, and we want to find those other people that are striving towards things as well. So the next key, and this is one of the tricky things for many business people, is to ask for the business. This is one of the trickiest things. You know, with my example previously about the gorgeous Young Living lady that I met while I was in India, she did all of the, you know, these fabulous things in being confident in the products that she was representing, being proud to represent them. And then right at the end, she did not ask for the business. Had she said, okay, well, from memory, it's about this much. Let me give you my details and I'll send you through everything you need to do so we can get those products to you straight away as soon as you get home from Australia. I honestly would have signed anything, given any details that I needed, but she didn't do that. What are the reasons that we don't ask for the business? For most of us, it's nerves. and it's fear of rejection. And that doesn't feel great. The risk of being rejected feels yucky. We don't want to put ourselves up against that. But being the excellent business people that we are, we kind of know that we need to do it anyway. So something that I want each of you to do in the next week before our next webinar is to ask for the business. For some of you who are newer in your journey with Young Living, that will be spreading your story amongst your friends, your community, and then once they're interested, saying, great, can I order that for you today? Brilliant. When would you like me to get that to you? Fabulous. When can I sign you up? Can I sign you up today? Great. I've got 10 minutes. Let's go through this now. And actually translating the initial conversation, which is often the fun part, talking about the things that we love, into the business part. And I totally get it. I run my own business. I have others that work for me, and it can be very intimidating. And I've been doing this for a long time now. So it can be intimidating. It can be scary, but do we need to do it anyway? Yes. We do. We do need to ask for the business. So I want you to ask 3 separate people for the business, and I'm doing in air quotes at the moment, for the business. So some of you who are silvers or golds, for example, that might be actually bringing somebody else into your network or into your community. For the newer people, that might be selling another product. Brilliant. And it's really time to start getting okay with the concept that businesses mean selling, and selling is a wonderful thing. It means we're doing the right thing and people are engaged and their lives are changing. So every single one of you here, you're going to ask 3 people for the business this week. Yahoo. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so transitioning on now into looking at some of our self-limiting beliefs. So for a lot of us, for almost every business person, we have some hang-ups about money. And it really pays for us to have a look at where those came from. So we're going to look at some of the self-limiting beliefs that we have about abundance and finances, selling and money. So on your pens and on your paper, with your pens in front of you, I want you to answer these 2 questions, which are, 1 statement for each is perfect. What my mum says about money, and then what my dad says or said about money. And I want 1 statement under each. Awesome. So an example of this might be that your mum always said, money doesn't grow on trees, and you kind of nodded as a little person. So I'd love for some of you to pop some of these statements that you heard, particularly while you were growing up, into the chat box. So write a couple of the statements that you heard or continue to hear from one or both of your parents growing up or even today. Oh, yes, these are fabulous examples. So Larissa's mum used to always say, don't tell your dad I spent that money. Oh, yes, so many people have that one. Samantha said, you have to work really hard to make good money. I know that's something that I personally heard in particular a lot from my dad's side of the family. And that's what leads to burnout and workaholism. That's definitely not what we want. Robin's family said you need to work hard for your money as well. Bev's family had an interesting one. Our family is not good with money. Dorothy's a family said, somehow we'll get it together. And Meredith, again, her family, what are you spending all that money on that for? Yeah, brilliant. Some people's parents were silent about money. There's a lot of the theme of you have to work really hard to be able to earn money. Yeah, really interesting, isn't it? So when we start to get clarity on what the influences we had growing up during our adolescence and during our adulthood about what we think about money, it starts to shed a pretty interesting light on how we perceive the world of financial abundance. Consider for a lot of us on this call, a lot of the parents of our parents went through the Great Depression as well. And that's going to be an influence that has filtered down and somehow still today is affecting a lot of people around. Another good example from Heather, we aren't made of money. Absolutely. There's not enough for the extras. There's a limit to the housekeeping from Amanda's family. Yeah, really good examples, everybody. So have a think now about how that affects your business. How does what mum and dad said about money affect your business? And I want to make sure that it's really clear that all of these things that we were brought up hearing, there's nothing wrong with them. You know, our parents in particular and the environment around us were all doing the best that they could. And that's what they needed to do to feel safe and secure and to, in most cases, help us be the best people that we can be. But as we know, because we're often, everybody on the call, I think, has done a lot of self-development and is interested in this space, it still affects us. So we need to manage that, deal with it, be aware of what is impacting us and affecting us, and then do something about it. So have a think about those statements and what is one very specific action that you can do to make sure that these influences aren't impacting your Young Living business today. So if anybody's got an example of an action that they can take, that'd be fabulous. Pop that in the chat box as well. So I'll give quite a specific action. Oh, yeah, great examples, everybody. Quite a specific action. I'm going to try to annotate on the screen. This is something that I do with some of my clients that are looking to build more financial abundance, particularly in their businesses, or they are trying to save money for something specific. Okay, so let me give this little pen a go. Oh, there we go. So what I get them to do is, you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, I get them to draw a column. Ooh, maybe a slightly neater column than that. And at the top, they put their goal. So let's say that they're saving for a particular holiday, and that holiday is going to cost them $10,000. Oh goodness, that's what my kindergarten writing looks like. And then what we do is we divide this column up into bite-sized chunks that they can easily achieve to be able to save. So we would chunk this one up into 10 chunks. Oh, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Brilliant. And then we put next to each of those chunks what the goal is there. So 1,000, 2,000, etc. Then what we do is we pop that up on your wall. So you might put it on the inside of your wardrobe or anything like that. That's totally fine as well. Somewhere where you see it reasonably frequently. And as you make each of those smaller milestones, you color in that block. And I know this sounds really simple, but it's so fascinating how many people have pulled out of debt using purely just this simple little technique. They color that in, and there's a very particular part of our brain that sees this column and says, well, it's not complete, it's not finished, there's some empty bits in it, and we want to fill that up. So then we do a little bit more, and then we fill in another little bit. And so that might be a really specific action that you can use to be able to increase your financial abundance or increase your sales targets or your sharing targets that you might be popping for yourselves. So let me have a look now at some of the examples that you guys have given. Yeah, Robin's got a great example of changing the internal dialogue to what I want to project. So that is, I can make money no matter how hard I work. So that's another fabulous example of an affirmation, and that's great. So that goes in the space of all of those negative self-talk words or statements that we may have about money. Brilliant, good example, Robin. Another example of a great affirmation from Rona. I do wonderful work in wondrous ways, giving wonderful service for wonderful pay. I love that. One of a colleague of mine in the speaking circuit, he does a talk called Whatever Happened to Wonderful, because it is so important to be able to bring that wonder back into our everyday life. So brilliant example, Rona. Yeah, really, really good. Yeah, cool. So Jenny's going to teach people how to use their oils in specific and personalized protocols to clear their resonance patterns. Brilliant. So the thing that I like about that is that's a really specific action that she can take. So Jenny, what I would recommend for you is to say, my action for this week, I'm going to teach 2 people how to do that. When am I going to do that? I'm going to do that on one on Wednesday and one on Friday. And that's going to be the specific action. Because what we want to move away from is saying things that sound great and sound good on paper and make it actually really practical. Brilliant. And Larissa's got a great example of not prejudging people on money and being upfront about what she's spending as well. I think not prejudging people on the money that they have is really important as well. There's a fabulous picture that sometimes I use in sales training of Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook guy, and he's sitting in a chair. He's got scrappy pants on, scruffy hair, ripped t-shirt. And, the concept is, would you want to sell to this guy? Does it look like he's got not much money? Actually, in the picture, according to our social norms, nope, he doesn't look like he's got any money at all. Whereas in actual fact, he's one of the most financially abundant people on the planet. So yeah, brilliant example, Larissa. Cool. So I'm going to open it up to specific questions that people have about anything that we've spoken about so far. I feel like this has totally gone so quickly. I've had such a great time. So if you've got any questions about anything that I've spoken about so far, so self-worth, imposter syndrome, being our authentic self, asking for the business, being remarkable, anything about any of those at all, I want you to pop those questions in the chat box, and Katrina's going to have a look at those and ask those to me if they don't pop up on mine. So think about any questions that you've got, any comments that you've got.
Meredith was asking, do you have any affirmation cards? You're talking about Louise Hay that are great around business. So anything in particular?
To do with business?
Well, yeah, the affirmation cards that Louise Hay you mentioned.
Yeah. So I think something that's quite important, is to get things that are holistic. So the ones that I use, and I use these for my business as well, is the general box. I don't have them in front of me now, but the general box of affirmation cards of I think you can heal your life. And I find those to be really amazing because we're looking holistically at things. And about a tenth of that box relates to, oh, not a tenth of that box, sorry, about a quarter of that box relates to business, work, and increasing abundance as well. So I'll find the name of the box I've got and pop it on your Facebook group after this as well.
Sometimes, if I can kind of share, sometimes if you just put it out there that that's what you're looking for, and then go wander around a bookstore or go onto an internet site and have a look and see what attracts you. Sometimes, you know, what attracts you might be the one to use as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's so many books on all of this, and some of them are going to speak to you and some of them aren't. You know, some of the major titles that I really like are Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I know it's an oldie, but it's still a real goodie. Another one that I've got sitting here, I know you can see me, I'm just going to pull it out, is actually this one, particularly for people who love the spiritual side of abundance as well. It's called Dimensions of Wealth, Natural Manifesting with Ease and Grace by Shakti Durga. She's a Sydney lady. She's an ex-barrister, and now she is essentially an Australian guru. So this is one of my favourite books when it comes to cultivating wealth. That is one that I would recommend. So you can Google that one up. That's a good example.
Post those on our on the YL Entrepreneur Facebook page as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Were there any other questions that popped up?
No, I think you answered everything that I saw, I think, when we were going through.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, well, in that case, we'll pop through. Oh, I've still got my money chart up the side. Ignore that. We'll pop through to the homework. So a few of you will have extra elements of actions and homework to complete, but every single person on this webinar is going to ask 3 people for the business. So you're going to get out there, be ballsy, be courageous, and ask for the business. Watch the Brené Brown TED Talk on vulnerability if you haven't already. Keep a pen and paper with you then and write down some of your takeaways. And then how's that going to affect your day-to-day Young Living business as well? And saying that affirmation daily. So remember, that is, I love and accept myself exactly as I am. 10 times into the mirror and minimum 20 times in addition to that. So I want that to be so stuck in your head that it feels like a song that's stuck in your head that just won't get out, like a jingle that keeps on repeat. That's where I want it to be for now. Awesome. Okie dokie. Any other questions at all, or any other comments from Katrina or anybody else?
Yeah, I just see someone was asking, is it supposed to be for silver? This webinar series was for the YL entrepreneurs and the silver and above leaders. But we'll be posting it up on both those sites, your silver page and your YL entrepreneur page. So anyone on those are going to have access to the recording of this webinar. You're more than welcome to share these learnings with your team. That's what this is all about. Take some of those exercises and pass that on to those. And also would ask on the YL Entrepreneur page, you know, maybe start commenting if you watch the Brené Brown, what you thought about that, how are you feeling about your affirmations, how you're feeling about saying that, and also, you know, I've spoken to those 3 people, or what it is that you did with those. So really encourage you and invite you to kind of open it up to other people who weren't on this call as well, so that they'll be intrigued and they'll want to watch this and it will support everyone's growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we kick into next week's webinar, which is on mastering life admin and blitzing procrastination, which is a hot topic for many, we're going to check in right at the start how you've gone with these different elements of your homework. So get ready to pop into the chat box straight away and let us know how you've been going a week from today as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for this evening. I've had a ball. I totally love speaking to people who care about why they get up in the morning and want to empower other people and want to grow and develop themselves. So I feel extremely honoured to have had this chance this evening. So it'll be same time, same place next week, and I really look forward to that.
Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, everyone, for coming along. Look forward to seeing you next week, and have fun with that homework. I know I'm going to be working on a few things. But stay tuned. I'm going to work on my calmness, because that's a good quality I saw in someone, and
Brilliant.
and fixed, which thought that I'd resolved that years ago, but it's still hanging in there. So I'm going to have some fun working on that this week as well.
Oh, that old chestnut.
Right,
good.
bye,
Brilliant.
everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.